Hi everyone, welcome back to Learn with me. I'm Deborah Hanson, and today we're going to be looking at AP World History 1.2 Dar al-Islam. So in this video, we're primarily going to be concentrating on the CED question for 1.2 from Unit 1, but we're going to go into a lot of details which are going to refer to some of the key terms, which we're going to talk about. If you see the list here, I'm going to talk about those in relation to the CED question that the College Board is going to be using for your exam. So before we get started, thanks to everybody who has liked and subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate it. If you haven't done that already, please, if you can do that, that would be very helpful. Let's get started. So for this section of Unit 1, there are 3 CED questions. These are basically the learning objective questions. So you need to be able to answer these questions so that you can be successful on the FRQ section of the exam. So first one is explain how systems of belief and their practices affected societies in the period from 1200 to 1450. The second, explain the causes and effect of the rise of Islamic states over time. And the last one, explain the effects of intellectual innovations in Dar al-Islam. So in these slides, you're not going to see a ton of information on the slide. It's really going to be me talking, kind of more like a lecture based, but I do have the full slideshow available with workbook and study notes and everything you're going to need to be successful on this unit and for the exam in the link below. So today we're diving into Dar al-Islam. That's the term for the Islamic world during the postclassical period. It was a time of incredible expansion, cultural growth, and also a lot of outside invasions. Let's break it all down. First, the early Arab invasions. They helped Islam spread quickly. Muslim armies expanded into Persia, parts of the Byzantine Empire, and across North Africa. These conquests weren't just military. They also spread Islamic culture, language, and law into new regions. Now we're going to talk about the Egyptian Mamluks. These were enslaved soldiers, mostly Turks from Central Asia. They were trained to fight, but over time they gained power and became bureaucrats and rulers, especially in Egypt. They even eventually established their own Mamluk Sultanate, which helped defend the Islamic world from the Mongols and the Crusaders. The Abbasid Caliphate moved the capital to Baghdad, shifting power from the Arabian Peninsula to Persia and Mesopotamia. This sparked a golden age of science, medicine, and learning. And one highlight, which is really important for the exam, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. This was an academic center where scholars from all backgrounds translated and preserved ancient texts. Then came the Seljuk Turks. They were Central Asian Muslims who challenged the Abbasid power. They didn't get rid of the Abbasid Caliph, but they took over political control and introduced the title Sultan for their ruler. This marked a big shift in who actually held power in the Islamic world. While all this political drama was going on, Islamic trade networks were thriving. The Muslim world connected Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, and Southeast Asia through the Indian Ocean trade and the Trans-Saharan trade routes. These routes helped spread not just goods, but ideas, technology, and Islam itself. And then finally, the Mongols, arguably the most famous conquerors in history, in the world history. They entered the scene. We're going to talk a lot more about the Mongols in Unit 2, but you just need to know that they were the fourth major group to challenge the Abbasids, and they succeeded where others failed. In 1258, they sacked Baghdad, ending the Abbasid Caliphate and crushing the Islamic Golden Age. For this slide, we're going to talk about culture and social life. We're going to talk about what life was actually like in the Islamic world during the post-classical era, not just politics and trade, but culture, learning, and everyday life. Islam gave people across a huge area from Spain to India a shared religious and cultural framework. This helped unify diverse peoples, blending Arab, Persian, Turkish, and other local traditions. Whether you were in Cairo, Baghdad, or Cordoba, Islamic values and the Arabic language created a sense of connection. Cities were the heart of Islamic society. Places like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cordoba became major urban centers full of markets, libraries, mosques, schools, and palaces. These cities weren't just political capitals. They were also bustling with artists and scholars and merchants from all over the world. One of the most important things to know is Islamic societies valued knowledge. Learning was seen as a religious duty. That's why Muslim scholars were had major advancements in science and medicine, mathematics, and literature. They translated Greek and Roman texts. They preserved ancient knowledge, and they created new discoveries like like algebra. Yeah, we have them to thank for that. Surgical tools and incredible poetry. So remember, Dar al-Islam, it wasn't just a political empire, it was a civilization powered by ideas. It unified people, built amazing cities, and helped spark the greatest periods of learning in world history. So, for the AP exam, think about how Islam created a connected cultural world that blended faith, trade, science, and art. So let's continue breaking down the cultural, social, and economic life in Dar al-Islam. As I mentioned, Islamic societies were key players in preserving and spreading knowledge. Scholars translated ancient Greek, Roman, and Persian texts into Arabic, preserving them through the House of Wisdom in Baghdad and other centers of learning. This knowledge would later fuel the European Renaissance. When it came to art and architecture, Islamic creativity shined. You'll see arabesque patterns, geometric designs, beautiful calligraphy in mosques and manuscripts. No images of people or animals, just abstract beauty, which is reflected through their religious principles. Another thing we need to talk about is Sharia law. This is a religious legal system that guided personal behavior, governance, and courts. It shaped everything from family life to business contracts. Also, we need to talk about trade because it was central to the Islamic world. Through the Silk Roads, the Indian Ocean routes, and the Trans-Saharan network, goods like silk, spices, textiles, and glassware moved across continents. Here's something unique. Unlike many other societies at the time, Islamic culture respected merchants. As long as they were honest, generous, and followed Islamic principles, merchants were seen as successful and moral figures. This wealth gave rise to an elite merchant class, and Islamic society was ethnically diverse, with Arabs, Persians, Turks, Berbers, and others living and trading under this Islamic rule. Slavery existed in the Islamic world, but most enslaved people came from military conquests or trade and worked in agriculture, domestic labor, and sometimes even as soldiers. Islamic teachings encouraged humane treatment and allowed for the possibility of freedom, especially through good deeds and charitable actions, but it was still a structured part of the economy. The status of women in Islamic societies varied a lot from region, culture, and class. While legal rights were limited, women did have some access to education, and a few held influential positions, especially in elite circles. Women could own property, inherit wealth, and manage businesses in some places, but their roles were shaped by local customs and patriarchal interpretations of Islam. So let's wrap up 1.2. So what do you need to remember for the AP exam? First, Islam unified a vast region with shared religion, law, and trade networks. Second, Islamic societies preserved ancient knowledge and pushed innovation. And third, cultural and ethnic diversity was embraced, and trade and learning were celebrated. I know it's a lot of content, but you've got this. Review your key terms, connect these ideas to all the other regions, and you'll be ready for the AP exam. So that was the essential knowledge you needed to know for the 3 CED questions for 1.2. So remember, it was explain how systems of belief and their practices affected society in the period from 1200 to 1450, explain the causes and effects of the rise of Islamic states over time, and explain the effects of intellectual innovations in Dar al-Islam. So hopefully you found that helpful. If you did, hit that like and subscribe button for me. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.